In addition to my day job as a computer science professor at Cornell, I collect and design puzzles, and I wanted to share with you what's been going on over the last few years in the area of Soma Cube puzzles. This is the Soma Cube that many of you are probably familiar with. Martin Gardner's son, Jim, talked about his father having one and having a friendship with its inventor, Piet Hein. So invented in 1930s, sold in Denmark. 1958, Martin Gardner writes about it in Scientific American, starts becoming more popular in the US. Writes again about it in 1969. And by 1969, he's going into more detail about the figure 240. For those who are familiar with Soma Cube, the notable thing is that it has 240 possible ways to assemble the pieces, referring to John Conway and Mike Guy, Richard Guy's son, who were the first to establish the list of 240 solutions. He also talks about the quest, which I'm going to talk about, that many people have been trying to do, is trying to come up with variants where you don't have this 240 solutions, you have just one solution, and one of them is, can you do it so that there's only one solution? Here it's, can you get it to balance on one particular point? It turns out that although Conway said there was only one way to do it, we've since learned that there's more than one way to do it. Wrote about it again in 1972. Also, I'll mention that earlier we had tributes to Burlkamp, Conway, and Guy. Their book, Winning Ways, Volume 2, talk about the Soma Cube. That's where I first learned an awful lot of things about the Soma Cube, including the map of all 240 solutions, which first appeared in 1972. So on to the tour of where Soma Cube has gone since then. Awful lot of the work on variations on Soma Cubes have been about coming up with variations that don't have this 240 solutions. One category, which I'll go through very quickly, because they're actually in the most mundane of the modifications, are colorings. The first one of them was 1970 by Piet Hein himself, which proposed, let's make each of the pieces out of two different colored cubes. And it turns out, if you do that the right way, you can get something that forms a cube in just 21 ways. 2001, we have one where you have to make a legal die. 2002, and on it goes, make a complete line that goes all the way around the cube. Make the name Theo, as in Theo Geerink, a puzzle designer and collector. There was an effort on Facebook across many people to enumerate all possible repeated patterns across all 6 faces and see what's the coloring of pieces that give you the fewest possible solutions. And so this gives some documentation of the search that was done collectively on Facebook. Again, all of these are just different ways of coloring the pieces, so you get different colored patterns on the outsides. Further, one of my own, and on it goes. This is actually a really interesting one that Oscar did, where Oscar Vendeventer, who comes to these gatherings, where the pieces aren't uniformly colored, but you have to assemble it into a cube so that it looks like you have uniformly colored pieces that came together to solve it. Yeah, really clever. Color the outside all black, Oreo. The second category are shape-shifted versions of the cube. So the Roma 1989 squished it kind of in an angle, and if you do that the right way, there's only one solution, because if you rotate them around, they're no longer in the right squished direction. Have little holes and, well, you can see. Squish the pieces down so they're half high. Again, some internet searching on Facebook, and I enumerated all 10 ways that you can squish them and get only one solution, one of which got taken and is now being produced without any acknowledgement of me. And then I had a goal of doing the shape shifting, but keeping the shape still being a cube. So each of these in some way changes the width of some of the layers, some of them uniformly across the whole layer, sometimes shifting across the layers. So each of these is a different way of doing it. And the last one uses solution to Hoffman's packing puzzle, for those who are familiar with it, and mapping it onto a Soma Cube solution. So each of these has a unique solution. Oscar did this brilliant idea of making it so that it has dovetails and only goes together in one way. A recent one with little additions on each of the pieces, and on it goes. And Oscar is continuing to do it. 36 days ago, 8 days ago, they're continuing to come out. Again, whirlwind tour, physical constraints. So like here's one that I mentioned before, you have to have it balanced. This one you have to do it so that these two pieces can come in and interlock across all the pieces. A different version that Franz, who also comes to these, did a year later. A Burr puzzle that has inside it a Soma Cube, so you have to simultaneously solve the Burr puzzle and the Soma Cube. 3 different assemblies, one of which you have to be able to see through all the way through on all the sides, one where you can't see through any. This one has to balance on a perch, pack them in a box. My own on the left is if you attach a popsicle stick to each piece, you can do it in a way that it can only be assembled in one way. The one on the right, you can only assemble it with 2 dowels so that the whole thing stays together and doesn't fall apart. I'm going to run out of time, so I'm just going to start going through these. So lots and lots of creativity is being brought to bear on in the Soma Cube space, and it's incredible what's been going on. And finally, there's this whole range of people that are taking the pieces and inventing totally new puzzles that happen to use the same pieces, and there's a lot of creativity going on in that space as well. If you have any interest in this, please see me.